So, hello and welcome to the first episode of what will be some irregular status updates of me building the automation game world in Transportiva 2. So what is this about? So there is a game, Automation the Car Tycoon game, and they have created a fictional small world with 5 countries for more or less testing purposes, while they're developing the grand campaign that will take place in the real world on Earth. And these 5 countries in that game all have different characteristics, and apparently over time a very detailed map and some lore has developed about these small fictional world with the 5 countries, and I thought one day it would be fun to actually build this world, model this world in another game, Transportiva 2, which you see here. And I spent a while just creating the empty map, and now I've started playing the actual game, starting in 1850, so about 100 years before the automation game starts, and then to fill it with life. So the purpose of everything in Transportiva 2 is basically you move people about and you move goods about. So you can see here that's the western part of the whole continent. Gasmea is that country called, and you see cities and you see certain industries, and then you move people from one city to the next. That leads to city growth, and you move cargo either from one industry to another. So for instance, this steel mill needs ore and coal, and then you can move the steel to the machine factory together with wood, which then creates machines, and then cities, or some cities such as Crafton, they want machines, and if they receive machines then they also grow. And in order to do that, you build roads or use the existing ones, you build train tracks, you use the waterways, and you can also do some terraforming to make all that happen. And that's basically it. You also have certain financial constraints, so your lines, whether they produce or whether they move cargo or whether they move people, have to make a profit so that you can build even more lines, and you start only with a certain amount, and you have to also take a loan, and then after a certain point you usually have enough money to just keep building, but I'm not there yet. So the map, so just giving a brief overview going from left to right, and then we go in depth through the geography, and then also to the lines that I put together in the first 5 years of in-game gameplay. So this is the whole continent with overall 5 countries. And this is basically the empty state, or was the empty state in 1850, so no lines doing anything, just the cities and some industries, and at some points where the map doesn't really fit, the cities became industries. So here on the map, which I also linked in the description, is a city called Winley, but since it didn't really fit between the city of Crafton and the city of Laston-on-Claris, I simply just put down one industry and then called it Winley. So that's the representation of the actual city of Winley, which doesn't have people, it just needs coal and ore and produces steel. So the entire map is a very large map in game on a 1:2 ratio. And even on this very large map, all these cities are tiny except the capitals. They are small cities, otherwise stuff wouldn't fit. And I also had to limit the overall growth effects of supplying cities with goods, or with moving people between cities, down to a quarter. So all the growth effects are just 1/4 of what they are in the original game. Otherwise the cities start to sprawl and go way beyond the scale, and even here the scale is a bit off already. So if we zoom in on this tiny city and then have an industry next to it, so this steel mill basically the same space as the entire city, and once we're starting especially train lines and airports, so then these are totally off scale. But it doesn't distract from hopefully the feeling of a living world where lots of stuff happens once we advance through the decades. So here, as I mentioned, that's the largest country, the country of Gasmea with the highlands. Thing is a little bit with these names, Menwyn, and so modeled on Wales and Scotland probably, and the whole country of Gasmea. This western part is, I think, a good mix of the British and US, American, Canadian influences, and they will get the US type vehicles in the game. So here so there are 3 different vehicle types in Transport Fever: US, European, and Asian, and the latter is essentially comprised of mostly Russian, Soviet Russian, and then Chinese in the later part. So this entire US part gets the US style vehicles, so trams, trains, trucks, and buses. It goes further in the north, so the entire north coast, and then here they get to a part. This is all still Gasmea. So here we change the name slightly. So Kirkstad, Kronhaven, that's a bit of a Scandinavian influence. Then in the eastern part of Gasmea, which we see here, and then the border is along this river where I'm currently moving the mouse. That's then a German influenced part of Gasmea, probably in 1855 in the automation world law. This is still an independent country, but they all get merged into one country. So there you have then towns like Bad Neusund, Hammersbach, Rosendorf, Wilburg, and Renzweiler. And this I made this, so this is all a bit hilly on the map, whereas the north is mostly flat with some rolling hills here. In the middle we have the Great Plains, also a nice river system, and here in the middle between the German part here on the east and the US/UK part on the west have a small area of France. So Vinant-le-Bay and Chapelle, and some other cities which have just become industries again due to space constraints. So Volgoine and Corvée and Chameroux and Poitiers. So unfortunately only 2 cities fits into the map, because here we're getting into the higher mountain areas. And then Aylesbury, namesake of the current version of the game, then we get here, have a bit of a mountain ridge, and then the Great Lakes around the capital, Harford. So one of 5 small cities, everything else is tiny. And then these are all shippable, so ships can go from the south coast up to Harford. In the south we have the island of Vianta, which historically belonged to Fruinia, which is the Italy, Spain, Mediterranean part in game. Later on it belongs to Gasmea. Then next here to the south and part of the Alps, so these are all high mountains here next to the coast, is the country of Hetvesia. So modeled on sort of Switzerland. Imagine Switzerland but with a warmer climate and on the beach. So again, German inspired name. So Karlstadt on the beach, Karlstadt am Strand, Berlau, Meereshofen, Friedheim am Meer, and Zeilwies, and a few other cities again which turned into industries. Naubad up here, I managed to put one tiny city up here into the Alps, and I hope this doesn't wreak havoc once it grows and wants to leave the confines of the Hetvesian Alps. And here a volcanic area, so that's supposed to be a dormant volcano around Friedheim, Goronwald, Lurenburg, Schuffenthal, and Ungenstadt. Further to the east and here south from the French and the German-speaking areas is the country of Fruinia. Also very mountainous, not as high as Hetvesia, but similarly, and as I just mentioned, so Fruinia is basically not Italy, not Spain, and you can see this from the names. So Marena, Piestella, Porto Castelfranco, Meranio, Terzo, Raicanta, Calides, Portimen, and then a couple of other cities again which turn into industries. So Lago Yamega, Padita, Narnilla is somewhere here, Montevias, so Monbinci, Bongato. So these are all then either mining or farming happening in the cities, and then the industry, as with Hetvesia, is next to the coast, because that's probably the only place where it fits, but also I think it makes sense not to have your heavy industry in the middle of the mountains. And also some high peaks here with hints of snow and mountain passes. So that's 3 countries. The 4th one we see here, Archana, which is then probably modeled on something like the Eastern Bloc. So you also see Slavic inspired city names, so Vajduk, Volkov, Novobeskov, Janagrad, Sarki, Kronagrad, Glensk, Yelta, Mara, Kurlin, Karipta, Tushgala, and so on. Some further in the north, so this is a bit drier, especially here in this western part of Archana. One small note here, I'm going with the city names as they are in the maps that we have, which are all dating to 2020, so when the automation game ends, and there I think the lore of, for instance, Rosendorf Tenelova is that the city was split between Gasmea and Archana during the time of what I like to call the sort of closed curtain, so that the markets between these 2 large countries only opened in 1990, similar to what happened in the actual real world, but I will model this from 1855 onwards in this way. I don't want to shift these things around. And then to the very east we have the small desert country of Dalluha, lots of oil as you can see, and this is then UAE inspired with names like Basara, Al-Nemra, Al-Rilma, and probably some other city which didn't fit. No, I think these were the only 3 cities. And they basically, as in our Middle East, they basically supply the oil for the entire world, and then they have to ship it halfway around the globe. So that's an overview of how the map looks like. So here we have the Archanan Basin, which is dry, and then mountainous areas around it, which are also then dry, and then again coast all the way around. So let's start. We can start here. So with the things I've done in the first 5 years of gameplay. So I started with 1 major cargo line in each country, so that something happens everywhere. So that's food in this case. So I'm shifting now to the line view. So everything yellow is either wheat or a grain going from farms to food processing plants, and then from there to cities that need food, which is in this case Basara. So Archana supplies Dalluha, but also then cities in Archana such as Glensk, they need food, or the icon here, bread. And you can see here then the icons with all these trucks. So that's then trucks, or rather horse carriages in 1855, and they ship the food, the bread, up to Basara in Dalluha over this mountain ridge and then back. So if we click on Basara, we can see they get almost the food that they need, and usually that's something that's it's a maximum that you can get in game, that this is the full supply if it's almost the entire demand fulfilled. Normally in a transport fever, in this case, you would see here probably a plus 80%. Here, as I mentioned, I had to highly curtail the growth, so this is just 20%. The other lines, and that's, I think, yeah, that's all that happens cargo-wise in Archana. The other thing I've been busy, and that's the neon green lines, are horse coaches between cities. So that, for instance, from Kronagrad, people can travel within Kronagrad. That's the first two in blue. Clockwise and counterclockwise, that's trams. Can have a look how they look. Where do we have a tram? Here. So that's a horse tram that shifts people around within the city and to the big exchange. And then from here they can go to Glensk, Mara, Arovatka, Yanagrad and Basara, and you see the amount of people waiting, so I haven't fully fine-tuned these lines because demand grows slowly over time. And the focus has been that most cities are connected. Not the best moneymaker, unlike food transported by ship and back. But it's useful to get people used to moving between cities in the early game, because then you have an easy time upgrading to, I think the next step are steam powered and then engine powered vehicles, so the first buses, or alternatively trains if you have high demand. So for instance here for the line from Mara to Kronagrad, we have 30 people waiting here, so that's then almost enough where you could say it's actually worth installing a train line, building a train line between Kronagrad and Mara, building then stations. These are usually very expensive, so I haven't done that yet, and probably won't for a while, so sorry all sort of train aficionados, but it has to be worthwhile. I started on hard mode, and in these early times trains are terrible, to keep a long story short. And then within we have this line from Kronagrad into Basara. That's, I think, among the busiest line at the moment, between two small cities, the two capitals, and then extensions to Alrima, and here also the other green lines. That's then usually point-to-point connections between cities, and then if the cities are close enough, then people can simply change to the next coach, also troika as they are called in the Asian car set, because there are 3 horses going side by side. That's probably something typical of that time, according to Wikipedia. So they modeled that here in game for the Asian car set, yeah, you have then a ship that just is picking up, in the process of picking up grain, waiting to be automatically supplied by this farm. So these are nearby. So everything that's lightens up is in the sort of catchment range, as it's called. So if I build the port here and the farm is here and the farm lights up, then the grain that's being produced is automatically transferred to the ship, which is very, very handy. And then this ship goes then to this port, unloads. So this ship happens to be has just unloaded the wheat for the food processing plant. The food processing plant puts then the food onto this cargo exchange and also on the ship, and we have now 13 units of bread here, which goes back to here and then by horse carriage again. So this one from this cargo exchange to Glensk to the truck stop, which is hidden here. And the nice thing about these horse carriage is they a straight upgrade into trucks once the engine has been invented. So same story for Fruinia. So if we switch to lines again, we have neon green lines between most cities. I think all cities here in this case, because there is nothing in the mountains. There wasn't any space. We have 2 food lines in yellow again. So here by ship from the Costa Guia farm to the Ila Gastela food processing plant, and then back, and then this supplies the city of Raikanta, and I think that's it. But even then, ships are usually one of the best money makers in this early game, because they can transport a lot, 70 units. You don't need infrastructure, and they're reasonably fast with 22. Horse carriages are certainly slower, So until the next generations of trains and trucks come, ships are one of your best bets on hard mode. So you can travel all across Fruinia and even between Fruinia and Archana by horse carriage. There is a second food line, a very long one, between Vianta, where it's also a farm, and that ships stuff then to another food processing plant near Porto Castelfranco. And this line makes a healthy amount of money due to this long distance between the source and the destination. And here this food processing plant supplies Porto Castelfranco and also takes some of the bread or the food back to Vianta, to Portaminta, and they also need bread. So that's and you can see here from the profit that just this single ship makes. I think this has financed most of the expansion here once I had this line established. Similar picture for Hetvesia. So we have neon green lines between all the cities and also between Fruinia and Hetvesia and between Gasmea and Hetvesia. And you can also travel except to Onboard to all cities via horse carriage. And you have another food line from this Lurenburg farm to the Berlau food processing plant, and in this case not back, also back to for Friedheim, and also then by horse carriage to Karlstadt. No public transport yet on Vianta. This is, yeah, might be worth it, but that's a bit of a niche line. And then Gasmea also same story. Connections by horse carriage between most cities, so you can travel once around the country. Yeah, so here in the north, Stiebi, Kirkstadt, Kronhaven, Bad Neusund, and then down here. No connection between Gasmea and Archana here. Just one through Rosendorf, because that's how I want to keep things so that they make sense from 1946 onwards. And then here through the German part, to the middle part, to the French part, back onto the Great Plains, and then even back to Harford over this mountain ridge. That's a very thin line at the moment. How many are waiting in Aylesbury? Just 4 waiting between Harford and Aylesbury, so not the most popular one. And the first also one food line, and the north coast, so from the farm near Greenhall all the way across the north coast to the Bad Neusund food processing plants, and then to Bad Neusund, to Kirkstadt, some back, and then Midbury is also being supplied by horse carriage. So that's this one here. Why are they waiting? That's full. Have to check that, why they seem to be stuck here. So that's always a part of the game, this sort of micromanagement. Normally all the lines are automated except when they don't do what they are supposed to do. So this, yeah, that's fine. That's just stagecoaches. So the US version, what's been the Troika in Archana is the US stagecoach, modeled on stuff that you probably know from Wild West movies. And here they are waiting till they are full. And that I can see when there is enough on a line, and when people are waiting and there is nothing waiting here, then I need to add a stagecoach. And here we have the American version or the US version of trams, horse-driven trams. 1855, no engine yet. So this was an overview of the map, how it looks in Transport Fever 2. As I said, there's a link in the description to the reveal of the game world, including an actual map or on screen, so you can see how things align and where I might have taken the odd liberty to model things, and also a first glimpse how this might look once everything is populated and not just one cargo line to a few cities, but all cities supplied by probably all industry, as I roughly estimated what I need, and that all industries have their supply and hopefully enough demand depending on city growth, and that we can have a full living, moving world. And also once we have the first trains, I think there will be a bit more action. And to give an impression how that whole thing looks, let's just ride a bit along from Kronagrad to Basara. Maybe the other way around. From Basara to Kronagrad. So this, yeah. So we are now have left Basara and now riding in a troika across this mountain ridge. Here we see another troika, or two rather, coming from Basara. And I think what I can do is speed up things. And then this shouldn't take too long. And here we see the troikas with the 3 horses. Now we are stuck behind a privately owned vehicle. So that's just one person driving it. So this would be a car in 80 years from now. And we also will see a few vehicles with 1 horse. That's then probably transporting the bread from Kronagrad to Basara and back. So we have passed the mountain ridge. Downhill. But still limited to 18 kilometers per hour. And at some point we will now turn left towards the Kronagrad exchange. Also, no asphalt yet, just dirt roads and some cobblestone in the cities. So we're now entering Kronagrad, the Archanan capital. Here we see the tram tracks for the horse trams. There we see a horse tram. And then here on the right is the exchange, and then we will now unload our 3 passengers. And load the next 3, which are already waiting, and then do the same thing all over again. So that's the basic principle how everything works. Alright, so I think that should suffice for now. So I'll give them the first glimpse and into the current state and how this will play out. So what I'll do next is probably go back to expanding the cargo lines now that almost all cities have their connection with horse coaches and carriages, and then to supply more cities and move more cargo around, not just food, but everything else as well. I will probably stick to the rough order how stuff became available, so steel in the late 1800s and then oil as the last thing of lines that I will start. Alright, so I hope this was interesting and made sense, even if you're not fully invested into the automation game world or haven't seen Transport Fever 2, and feel free to ask questions if I should go over something in more detail in the future. Thank you.